What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Cosmic Wonder. We have some major X-Men news to talk about today. And what's interesting about this news is that it was kind of shoved into an article about other news that is also really important about Marvel Studios and their future. So news about Marvel in general today, including some new release date slots that they have just listed, a big announcement about the X-Men, the new X-Men film, not the X-Men that are going to appear in Doomsday and Secret Wars. And we have news to go over as well about the villains that Marvel Studios are planning to introduce as a part of the Mutant Saga to be those big X-Men villains coming up. It's a super exciting time that we're diving into, going into Doomsday, Spider-Man Brand New Day, Secret Wars, God Emperor Doom, the OG X-Men returning, and then starting the new universe with the X-Men. So if you love Marvel, want to keep up to date with everything, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. So this new report is coming from Variety. It's not a super long report, so we'll go over the entire thing, but as I mentioned, in this, they kind of casually drop a big bomb about the new X-Men film. It's titled, Marvel adds possible fourth movie to 2028 slate, which is big, and of course, we're going to talk about that. But then they state, Disney announced on Wednesday that Marvel Studios is scheduled to release an untitled movie on December 15th, 2028. It would be the fourth feature from the division set for that calendar year, with previously announced films scheduled for release in February, May, and November of 2028. So as of right now, in 2028, we get movies in February, May, November, and December, and that is a lot, and they go on to talk about the likelihood of Marvel actually keeping to those dates. They state, should all four films hold on to these dates, which is not nearly certain, it would be an unexpected move from the studio given Disney CEO Bob Iger's recent public admission that Marvel lost a little focus by making too much. And they quote him stating, "We all know that in our zeal to flood our streaming platform with more content that we turned to all of our creative engines, including Marvel, and had them produce a lot more. We've also learned over time that quantity does not necessarily beget quality, and frankly, we've all admitted to ourselves that we lost a little focus by making too much. By consolidating a bit and having Marvel focus much more on their films, we believe that will result in better quality." And I do want to address one thing here, because I do believe what Bob Iger is talking about and what Variety is talking about is very different. Variety thinks that making all of these movies would go against what Bob Iger said, but no, I believe what he was really saying is that Disney Plus is what kind of messed them up, and they need to focus more on movies now, in which having 4 movies in a year would be focusing more on the movies. Now, ultimately, they get to this paragraph where they state, Secret Wars is meant to be the finale of the multiverse saga, after which Marvel is expected to pivot to a saga centered around characters inherited in Disney's 2019 acquisition of 20th Century Fox, the X-Men. And here's the bomb that is just casually thrown in there. Thunderbolts director Jake Schreier has been tapped to helm the MCU's first mutant movie. Although many actors from Fox's X-Men movies in the 2000s, including Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart, will appear in Doomsday. So right there, they just confirmed to us that the new X-Men movie that Marvel is working on, that probably belongs to one of these dates in 2028, has a director. That movie has a director, and it is Thunderbolts director Jake Schreier. Now, this was talked about before. We heard that Marvel Studios was eyeing him and was talking to him about it, but we didn't know if this was official or not. According to Variety, it is official. And I personally really liked the Thunderbolts. It wasn't perfect by any means, but I thought it was a pretty great movie and definitely a step up from what we've been getting from Marvel recently. But most importantly, I think the direction that he had for all of the action sequences was done exceptionally well. That scene where they fight Sentry in the Watchtower was epic. The scene where they're in the vault was epic. The scene where they're in the limo was pretty epic as well. So I think he can handle action and also emotional depth very well too, which I think is very important when it comes to the X-Men, because there's a lot that goes into the stories of the individual members, but also them as a whole, as they deal with society not accepting them. That's a really big part of the X-Men storyline, and I think that's what they're going to start to cover in the New Mutant era. Now, a few weeks ago, we actually got some pretty big reports about who Marvel Studios is planning to introduce as the villains for the X-Men. And we are talking specifically about the first X-Men film, this new one post-Avengers Secret Wars that Jake Schreier is going to direct. And it sounds like they have a lot planned, and this will definitely set up the future of the X-Men. Because I wouldn't like to believe at least, that these villains would be a one and done. They kind of need to survive and stick around. But according to Alex Perez from the Cosmic Circus, Marvel Studios is reportedly planning to use Mr. Sinister, Essex, Senator Kelly, and Bolivar Trask as the main antagonists in the X-Men movie. Now, if you're familiar with the X-Men in any way, shape, or form, whether that's from the comics, the animated series, the newer X-Men 97, or the old Fox X-Men movies, you know at least one of these characters probably. In fact, if you watched the old and newer animated series, you probably know all of them. And these are key villains in the history of the X-Men in general. And I actually do think it's a good idea to kind of introduce them all at first. Again, as long as they don't kill them all off right away. And I don't think you really can, and I don't think that Kevin Feige would do that. But it does seem like Marvel Studios is taking a page from the X-Men 97 book and kind of trying to bring that to the big screen. And we've actually heard reports that the team of mutants that we're going to see is pretty similar to that X-Men 97 team. And when speaking about the X-Men, Kevin Feige even said this recently: "I think you will see that continue in our next few movies with some X-Men players that you might recognize." Right after that, the whole story of Secret Wars really leads us into a new age of mutants and of the X-Men. Again, it's one of those dreams come true. We finally have the X-Men back. So this is just like the perfect situation for Kevin Feige. This is what he's been dreaming of doing, bringing the X-Men into the connected Marvel Cinematic Universe. You have to remember that Kevin Feige got his career for Marvel started with the very first X-Men film, working alongside Hugh Jackman, Patrick Stewart, Ian McKellen, which is definitely why for Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars, he is bringing those older X-Men back into the movies and into the MCU for the very first time. It's because Kevin Feige really does care, and I think that means we're in for a really great X-Men mutant saga coming up in the MCU because he cares so much. And right out the gate, if this report is true, he's going to tackle the big subjects right away. With Senator Kelly, they're obviously going to address the fact that the mass public doesn't exactly feel safe with the mutants around. They don't exactly see them as heroes, and they're going to struggle to fit into society. And that, of course, is where we get a pretty big divide between Magneto and Charles Xavier. Again, a key relationship that you have to explore at first because it leads up to a lot of conflict. Meanwhile, Bolivar Trask, he's going to go on to create the Sentinels, another really big part of the X-Men. And honestly, Marvel Studios taking a page from the animated series in X-Men 97, I think is a great thing because they did those stories exceptionally well. So it makes sense that they would look to those stories as inspiration for what to do for the live action movies. And again, they are some of the biggest and key stories that the X-Men deal with. So starting off the mutant saga this way with an X-Men movie directed by Jake Schreier focusing on some really important X-Men topics and plot lines, I think that's a really great way to start off the new X-Men team. But go ahead, let me know what you think about this in the comments down below, and be sure to let us know what you think about the director, Jake Schreier. Please don't forget to like this video and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the latest Marvel news. You can find us on most social medias, and as always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.